What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, and before I say another word, before I get into the absolute chaos that went down, I need you to stop what you're doing right now and listen very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is going to make your blood boil. I'm talking about pure disrespect, I'm talking about ego running wild, I'm talking about a situation that has the entire wrestling world divided right down the middle. Brock Lesnar, the beast incarnate himself, went on live television and looked directly into the camera, and with that smug expression on his face, told Femi, one of the most dominant rising stars in all of professional wrestling, that he will crush him. Not that he could beat him, not that it would be a tough match, but that he will crush him like a bar is nothing more than an insect under his boot. Now, I already know what's about to happen in the comment section. I know some of you are going to defend Brock and say he's earned the right to talk like that. I know some of you are going to be furious at the disrespect shown to Bar, and I know some of you are going to think I've completely lost my mind for what I'm about to say. But I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because I'm going to break down exactly why Brock's comments are not just disrespectful, but dangerous for the future of professional wrestling, and why this entire situation represents everything that's wrong with how veterans treat the next generation of talent. So hit that like button right now, smash that subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and let's dive into this absolute mess. Let me set the scene for you, because the context of how this went down makes it even worse than you might think. This wasn't some backstage interview where Brock was caught off guard. This wasn't a heated moment in the ring where emotions were running high. This was a planned segment on live television where Brock had plenty of time to think about what he was going to say, and he still chose to come out there and completely disrespect one of the most talented big men we've seen in years. Brock walked out with that confident swagger, that arrogant smirk, and when the interviewer asked him about the possibility of facing Femi, Brock didn't just dismiss the idea, he laughed at it. He actually laughed like the very concept of Bar being in a ring with him was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. And then he delivered that line, the one that's going to be replayed over and over again, the one that's going to define this entire feud moving forward. He said, and I quote, "I'll crush you. Not I'll beat you, not I'll defeat you, but I'll crush you, like Bar is some nobody who just walked in off the street." Now let's talk about who Femi actually is, because I think that's really important context that a lot of people, including apparently Brock Lesnar, seem to be forgetting. Femi is not some green rookie who just started training yesterday. This man is 6'4", 270 pounds of pure muscle and athleticism. He moves like someone half his size. His agility is absolutely insane for someone his build. He has dominated NXT for over a year, holding the North American Championship through one of the most impressive title reigns we've seen in that brand's history. During that reign, he didn't just beat people, he absolutely destroyed them. He made veterans look like they didn't belong in the same ring with him. He made rising stars look like they were still in developmental. His presence alone changes the entire atmosphere when he walks into a room. When Femi's music hits, everyone in that arena knows that someone is about to have the worst night of their career. This is not someone who should be dismissed with a casual threat about being crushed. This is someone who has proven over and over again that he belongs at the top of this business. But here's what really makes this situation infuriating, and this is where I need you to really pay attention, because this goes way deeper than just one comment on one show. Brock Lesnar's attitude toward Bar represents a fundamental problem in professional wrestling, and that problem is the refusal of established stars to give the next generation their proper respect and their proper opportunities. Brock looks at Bar and sees someone who hasn't main event WrestleMania yet, someone who hasn't held a world championship yet, someone who hasn't done all the things that Brock has done. And because of that, Brock feels justified in treating Bar like he's beneath him, like he's not worthy of even being mentioned in the same conversation. But here's the thing that Brock either doesn't understand or doesn't care about. The only way for Bar to accomplish those things, the only way for him to main event WrestleMania and hold world championships and build that legendary resume, is for the established stars like Brock to be willing to work with him and help elevate him to that level. Think about this for a second and really let it sink in. When Brock Lesnar was in Femi's position, when he was the young rising star trying to break through to that next level, he had veterans who were willing to work with him. Kurt Angle put Brock over and made him look like a legitimate threat. The Rock worked with Brock and helped establish him as a main event player. Hulk Hogan agreed to face Brock and lent him credibility by association. All of these established stars looked at young Brock Lesnar and said, "You know what, this kid has something special, let's give him opportunities and see how far he can go." They didn't tell him he needed to accomplish everything before they would agree to face him. They didn't say he needed to prove himself worthy of sharing a ring with them. They gave him those opportunities, and Brock took advantage of them and became the legend he is today. But now that Brock is in the position those veterans were in, now that he's the established star who could help elevate the next generation, he's refusing to do the same thing for Bar that was done for him. He's pulling the ladder up behind him. He's saying that a bar needs to somehow accomplish all these things before Brock will even consider treating him as a legitimate opponent, but how is a bar supposed to accomplish those things if guys like Brock won't give him the opportunities? It's completely circular logic that only makes sense if you accept that Brock is just being selfish and protecting his own position at the expense of the business. And that's exactly what he's doing. Brock is more concerned with maintaining his aura of dominance and his spot at the top of the card than he is with helping build the future of professional wrestling. Let me tell you something else that's going to make you angry about this situation. The way Brock delivered that threat, the way he said, "I'll crush you," with that dismissive tone, that wasn't just about a bar. That was a message to the entire roster of younger talent. Brock was essentially telling everyone in that locker room that they don't measure up, that they are not on his level, that they should just accept their place and not even think about challenging the established hierarchy. And that kind of attitude is toxic. That kind of attitude kills the competitive spirit that makes wrestling great. Because if the younger wrestlers believe that the veterans will never give them a real chance, if they think that no matter how hard they work or how much they improve they'll never be seen as equals, then why would they even bother trying? Why would they push themselves to be great if they know the gatekeepers are never going to open the gate? This is exactly the kind of thing that has hurt wrestling in the past. When established stars become so focused on protecting their spot that they refuse to elevate new talent, the entire business suffers. You end up with a stale product where the same people are on top year after year and fans get bored because nothing ever changes. You end up with a roster full of talented wrestlers who never reach their potential because they are never given the opportunities they need to break through to that next level. And eventually, those older stars retire or can't perform anymore, and suddenly you realize you don't have any new stars ready to take their place because you spent years keeping them down instead of building them up. That's the situation Brock is creating right now with his attitude toward a bar and the rest of the younger generation. Now let's talk about the actual threat itself, this idea that Brock will crush a bar. On the surface, sure, Brock Lesnar is one of the most physically dominant wrestlers in history. He's a freak athlete with legitimate fighting credentials. He's proven he can handle himself against the absolute best in both professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. Nobody is going to dispute that Brock is dangerous and that he's beaten some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. But the idea that he would just crush a bar Femi, that it wouldn't even be competitive, that's where Brock's arrogance is showing. Because a bar Femi is not some pushover. A bar is every bit as physically imposing as Brock. He's younger, he's hungrier, and he has everything to prove. If these two actually got in the ring together, it would be a war. It would be two absolute monsters going at each other with everything they have, and the outcome is far from certain. In fact, I would argue that a bar has several advantages that Brock seems to be completely ignoring. First, age and wear and tear. Brock has been doing this for over 20 years. His body has taken an incredible amount of punishment both in WWE and in UFC. He's had multiple serious health issues. He's not the same unstoppable force he was 10 or 15 years ago. A bar, on the other hand, is in the prime of his career. His body is fresh. He hasn't accumulated decades of damage. That matters in a physical confrontation. Second, motivation. Brock at this point in his career is just collecting paychecks. He's already accomplished everything there is to accomplish. He has nothing left to prove. A bar, on the other hand, is trying to make his name. He's trying to establish himself as a top star. He would go into that match with everything on the line, willing to do whatever it takes to win. That kind of desperation and hunger can overcome a lot of physical advantages. But here's what really gets me about Brock's threat, and this is the part that I think a lot of people are missing. By saying he'll crush a bar, Brock is actually setting himself up for potential embarrassment. Because now the expectation is set. Brock has said publicly that this wouldn't even be competitive, that he would dominate a bar easily. So if these two ever do face each other and a bar puts up a fight, if a bar pushes Brock to his limits or maybe even beats him, Brock is going to look absolutely foolish. He's going to look like all his trash talk was just hot air. He's going to look like he underestimated his opponent and paid the price for his arrogance. Smart veterans don't make those kinds of definitive statements because they know it can backfire. They give their opponents respect publicly even if they are confident they can win, because that way if something goes wrong, if the match doesn't go as planned, they have an out. Brock didn't do that. Brock went all in with his disrespect. And that means if a bar gets any offense in at all, if he makes Brock work for it even a little bit, Brock's entire threat falls apart. Because you can't say you're going to crush someone and then struggle against them. Those two things don't go together. Either you dominate them completely and prove your words were accurate, or you prove that you were overconfident and disrespectful for no reason. There's no middle ground when you make a statement that definitive. Let's also talk about what this means from a storytelling perspective because I think that's really interesting. Whether this was planned by creative or whether this was Brock going into business for himself, this creates a very specific narrative. You now have the arrogant veteran who doesn't respect the young lion, who thinks he can just walk through him without breaking a sweat. And you have the disrespected young star who has been told he doesn't measure up, who has been dismissed and insulted on live television. That's a classic wrestling story. That's David versus Goliath. That's the underdog who has to prove everyone wrong. And in those stories, the underdog usually wins, or at least performs way better than anyone expected, because that's what makes for satisfying storytelling. So if WWE is smart, if they are actually planning to do something with this, they should absolutely book Brock versus Bar and they should have Bar win. Not in some screwy fashion with interference or distract irons, but clean in the middle of the ring. Have Bar prove that Brock was wrong to dismiss him. Have Bar show that the next generation is ready to take over. Have Bar use Brock's arrogance against him and show that underestimating your opponent is the biggest mistake you can make in professional wrestling. That's how you create a star. That's how you take someone from being a dominant force in NXT to being a legitimate main event player on the main roster. You put them in the ring with one of the biggest names in the business and you let them win convincingly. But will WWE actually do that? I honestly don't know. Because time and time again we've seen situations where the younger talent should go over and instead the veteran wins to protect their legacy, or because someone backstage doesn't think the young person is ready yet. We've seen countless examples of promising wrestlers who never reached their potential because they were fed to the established stars instead of being elevated by them. And I'm worried that's exactly what's going to happen here. I'm worried that if Brock and Bar ever do face each other, Brock is going to insist on winning to back up his trash talk, and Bar is going to be just another name on Brock's list of people he's beaten. And that would be such a waste. That would be such a missed opportunity to create something special. Here's another angle to this that I find really frustrating. Brock's threat to crush Bar isn't just disrespectful to Bar personally, it's disrespectful to everyone who has shared a ring with Bar and lost to him. Think about all the talented wrestlers in NXT who have faced Femi and come up short. Are we supposed to believe that all of those people are so far below Brock's level that Bar beating them means nothing? Are we supposed to think that Bar's entire title reign and all his accomplishments are worthless because Brock says he could crush him easily? That's incredibly insulting to a lot of hardworking professional wrestlers who have put Bar over and helped build him up as a threat. Brock is essentially saying that none of that matters, that NXT might as well be a completely different sport because anyone who is dominant there would still be nothing compared to him. And that attitude, that dismissiveness toward NXT and developmental talent in general, is something that has plagued WWE for years. There's this perception among some of the main roster stars that NXT doesn't count, that it's still developmental even though it's been its own full-fledged brand for years now, that succeeding in NXT doesn't mean you're ready for the main roster. And that perception hurts everyone. It hurts the NXT wrestlers who feel like they have to prove themselves all over again when they get called up. It hurts the fans who invest in NXT storylines only to see them completely ignored when people move to the main roster. And it hurts the business overall because it creates this artificial hierarchy where really talented wrestlers are held back based on arbitrary distinctions about which brand they've worked on. Femi has proven himself. Period. Full stop. He doesn't need to prove himself in NXT and then prove himself all over again on the main roster and then prove himself all over again to guys like Brock Lesnar before he's taken seriously. He's already put in the work. He's already shown what he's capable of. He deserves respect based on what he's already accomplished, not conditional respect based on what Brock thinks he still needs to do. This idea that you have to earn Brock Lesnar's respect before you're considered legitimate is absurd. Brock should be earning the respect of the younger generation by treating them professionally and helping elevate them, not demanding that they jump through arbitrary hoops before he'll even acknowledge them as worthy opponents. Let me also address something that I know some of you are thinking right now. Some of you are probably saying, well, this is just Brock being a heel, this is just him playing the arrogant villain who talks down to everyone. And sure, that's part of it. Brock has always had that heel persona where he acts like he's better than everyone else. But there's a difference between playing a character and genuinely disrespecting people. There's a difference between cutting a promo that builds heat and actually damaging someone's career by burying them publicly. And I think Brock crossed that line with his comments about Bar. Because the way he said it, the dismissive tone, the complete lack of any acknowledgement of Bar's accomplishments, that went beyond just being a heel. That was genuine disrespect. Good heels make you want to see them lose. They make you invested in their opponent beating them. They build up their opponents even as they claim superiority because that makes the eventual confrontation more meaningful. Bad heels just bury everyone around them and make their opponents look weak, which makes fans not care about seeing them face those opponents because the outcome seems predetermined. Brock's comments about Bar fall into that second category. He didn't make me excited to see them face each other. He made me worried that if they do face each other, it's just going to be Brock squashing Bar and proving that his threat was accurate, which helps nobody except Brock's ego. Now let's talk about what Bar should do in response to this because I think his response is going to be really important for how this story develops. Bar has a few options here. He could respond with his own verbal attack, matching Brock's intensity and making it clear that he's not intimidated by the threats. He could take the high road and let his actions speak louder than words, continuing to dominate everyone put in front of him until WWE has no choice but to give him that match with Brock. Or he could use Brock's disrespect as motivation, talking about how he's going to prove everyone wrong who doubted him, everyone who said he wasn't ready, everyone who dismissed him before giving him a chance. All of these are valid approaches, and honestly, the best response might be some combination of all three. But what a bar absolutely cannot do is back down or show that Brock's words got to him in a negative way. If a bar responds by seeming intimidated, by questioning himself, by acting like maybe Brock is right and he's not ready for that level of competition, then Brock wins without ever having to face him. The whole point of disrespecting an opponent like this is to get in their head, to make them doubt themselves, to take away their confidence before you ever lock up in the ring. A bar has to show that Brock's threats mean nothing to him, that he believes in himself and his abilities regardless of what any veteran thinks about him. That's the only way to turn this situation into something positive. And honestly, from everything I've seen of a bar, Femi's character and persona, I think is more than capable of handling this the right way. A bar carries himself with confidence. He's not someone who seems easily shaken or intimidated. He has that quiet intensity, that calm assurance that comes from knowing you're really good at what you do. So I expect his response to Brock is going to be measured but firm. Something along the lines of, Brock Lesnar can say whatever he wants, but when we finally step in the ring together, I'm going to show him and everyone else exactly what I'm capable of. That kind of response doesn't escalate things unnecessarily, but it also doesn't back down. It sets up the confrontation while maintaining a bar's credibility and confidence. Let me bring up another point that I think is worth discussing, and that's the business side of all this. From a purely financial perspective, Brock versus a bar could be a huge money match if it's built correctly. You have the established legend against the rising star. You have the contrast in styles and personalities. You have the built-in story of disrespect and proving yourself worthy. That's a WrestleMania caliber match if WWE wants it to be. But the way Brock is handling this, with the dismissive threats and the lack of respect, is actually making it harder to sell that match to casual fans. Because if Brock is saying he'll crush a bar easily, why would casual fans pay to see that match? They are going to assume it's just going to be another Brock Lesnar squash match where he dominates from start to finish. There's no drama in that. There's no reason to invest emotionally in that match. Smart wrestlers know how to build their opponents up even while claiming they are going to beat them. They say things like, my opponent is dangerous, they are talented, they are going to bring their absolute best, but I'm going to be ready and I'm going to prove I'm better. That makes people want to see the match because there's uncertainty about the outcome. There's a sense that it could go either way. That's what creates compelling television and compelling pay-per-view matches. Brock saying he'll crush a bar does the opposite. It removes all uncertainty and makes the match seem pointless. Why would I pay to watch someone get crushed? I want to see a competitive fight where both people have a realistic chance of winning. So Brock is actually hurting himself financially with these comments, even if he doesn't realize it. He's making a potential money match less appealing to fans by underselling his opponent. And that's just bad business. It shows that Brock is more concerned with feeding his ego and maintaining his image than he is with actually making money and creating memorable moments. And that's disappointing from someone who is supposed to be a consummate professional who understands the business side of wrestling. Alright, let's talk about what I think is going to happen moving forward, and I want you to drop a comment and let me know if you agree or disagree with my prediction. I think WWE is going to book some kind of confrontation between Brock and the bar, probably at a major pay-per-view. I don't know if it'll be at WrestleMania or SummerSlam or one of the other big shows, but they're going to capitalize on this heat. And when they do finally have that match, I think we're going to see one of two outcomes. Either Brock wins in a competitive match that makes a bar look good even in defeat, showing that he belonged in that ring and proving that Brock's threat about crushing him was overconfident, or a bar pulls off the upset and beats Brock, using Brock's arrogance against him and showing that the next generation is ready to take over. Personally, I'm hoping for that second outcome because I think that's what's best for business long term. But I won't be surprised if WWE goes with the first option because they tend to be conservative about having legends lose to up-and-coming talent. What I really hope doesn't happen is that this whole thing just fizzles out without a payoff. I hope we don't get a situation where Brock makes these threats and then they never actually face each other, or they have some kind of non-finish where neither person really wins or loses. That would be the worst possible outcome because it would mean all of this heat, all of this controversy, all of this discussion was for nothing. Wrestling fans invest emotionally in these storylines, and they deserve proper conclusions that pay off the build-up. Brock saying he'll crush a bar demands a response. It demands a match where that claim is either proven true or proven false. Anything less than that would be a disappointment. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to drop a comment and tell me what you think about this entire situation. Do you think Brock was out of line with his threat to crush a bar? Do you think a bar deserves more respect based on what he's already accomplished? Do you want to see these two face each other? And if so, who do you think should win? I want to hear all your thoughts, all your opinions, even if you completely disagree with everything I just said. That's what makes this community great, the ability to have these passionate discussions about wrestling. And listen, I know this video went deep into this topic. I know I spent a lot of time analyzing one comment that Brock made. But that's because I care about this business and I care about seeing the next generation of talent get the opportunities and respect they deserve. Brock Lesnar is a legend and I respect everything he's accomplished. But legends have a responsibility to help build the future, and threatening to crush rising stars without giving them proper respect is not how you do that. It's how you hold the business back and protect your own ego at the expense of everyone else. Before I go, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to be following this story closely as it develops. Every time there's a new development in the Brock vs. Bar situation, I'm going to be here breaking it down and giving you my honest analysis. This channel is all about having real conversations about wrestling, the good and the bad, the things we love and the things that frustrate us. And this Brock Lesnar situation definitely falls into that frustrating category, even though it has the potential to turn into something great if it's handled correctly. Alright everybody, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I really appreciate every single one of you who made it through this entire video. Drop that comment, hit that like button, share this video with your wrestling friends because I guarantee they have strong opinions about this too. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.